Unemployment for everybody else is 3.9. Everybody's happy because we're at, less than 4%. But guess what? Black folks are at 10%.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Mike, every week on the show, we aim to disrupt the way entrepreneurs and real estate agents think about their business in order to make them more profitable and productive. And this week, I want to disrupt the way people think about housing wealth. And, we all obviously hear about it a ton in our industry of real estate, where in the last 2 years, basically you owned a home and then your net worth went up incrementally, the based purely on M2 numbers, so money supply. The Americans should have seen an $83,000 increase in their net worth in the last 24 months. And I have no doubt that there are plenty who saw a greater increase in their net worth, and then there are way more who saw less than $83,000 increase in their net worth in the past 24 months. And the most impacted from a negative standpoint still continues to remain minorities. In fact, when home prices went up in the last 24 months, homes in black neighborhoods are still seeing a $55,000 lesser value than homes in white neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before we went on there, and this doesn't cause you to be shocked or awed, and it blows my mind. Why?
It's because it's a residue. This has been going on. So, for example, I took a phone call this week. I was lead generating, and I called a client, and the client a prospect, and he happened to be a black person, African American, and he was trying to get a home value on his house because he was refinancing it. And I started having a conversation around him, and his concern was he wanted me to come out and give him a value because he was afraid that his house was going to be under appraised because of the color of his skin. So I have this. These are things that you don't have to think about.
Yeah.
When I'm listing a house, I listed my aunt's home, and she wanted to know, Mikey, do I need to take down my pictures?
Yeah.
I said, Aunt, don't worry about it. Aunt Wanda, don't worry about it. That house stayed on the market for 2 months. She took the pictures down. We sold it within a couple of days. So I would like to believe that had nothing to do with it, but it was a coincidence. But that's an example of the systematic, how it's baked in. How do you fix that?
That's the several multi-trillion-dollar question, right? Is how do you fix that? It's you're right. That's not something I think about. It's funny though that you mentioned that, because last night, as I was preparing for the show and talking through things, Lauren and I were talking about this, and she said the same thing about taking down photos for an appraisal, and I'm like, oh, come on, like that can't be something that legitimately impacts appraisal values. And yes, it absolutely appears, if you just aggregate all of the data, that photos of a family, and whether the photos of the family is white, black, Hispanic, do seem to impact appraisal values.
They redecorate. I've had people, like, their houses are, with a certain motif, and they whitewash it in order to get a better value for it. So that's baked in. This is what these numbers give us clarity on something that black people have always known. So before, we don't need numbers to articulate. If you're treated a certain way, know how you're treated.
Got it. So it could be a feeling or an emotion, or you knew it based on what a day-to-day was like for you. And now the data, the evidence, the research matches the anecdotes.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So earlier when I said that, I haven't changed, I meant it. More people see it because now we have the data to support it. And what's crazy is we're born into this. So by being born into this, check this out. Have you ever played Cowboys and Indians?
Yes.
Y'all played Cowboys and Indians? So have I.
It might have been Cops and Robbers, but probably same thing. Probably same thing.
So,
yeah.
okay. We all played Cowboys and Indians. The crazy thing about being black is realizing later on you're the Indian. Do you know what a kind of mind fuck that is?
Yeah.
Like this whole time I've been the Cowboy too.
Yeah.
That is like, we don't know. Like everybody doesn't know. And I think that clarity is what is happening. Everybody is clear. I know now. So now I can act different, right? But is that right?
Got it. I got it. So when you say now with clarity you can act different, what you mean is you could advise a client. Let me walk back before I shove my foot in my mouth with fair housing. So I don't know. I should know this, but I'm gonna say if it's a fair housing violation, because we're real estate agents and we have those requirements that do whatever is in alignment with fair housing. But what you're saying is that if it were not a violation of fair housing, someone could redecorate. You could advise someone to do the best thing for their financial interest.
Yeah,
because
but
now
I
you
shouldn't have to.
That's right. Yeah.
The problem is that's the gap.
Yeah.
I have to do that, but I shouldn't have to. See what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Here's what's interesting to me too as well, Mike. There's just a ton of data that shows, as you know, we disagree, and we've kept it off our podcast as much as possible. We disagree with the pandemic response, right?
Yes.
The beauty of it is that it's not because we choose to be like ignorant on the information. It's just that we choose to believe that the approach was right or wrong or best or could have been better, right? And yet I think the thing that we both agree on most is that the response has disproportionately impacted minorities, women, and the poor more than anything, right? And so, I'm one of my favorite.
So why is that?
Well, because unfortunately, minorities and the poor have the least representation in policymaking. Okay. And so, the closer you get to the money printer, the closer you make policy that benefits you with the money printer. And therefore, the lobbyists who have more money and a louder voice, and the elites who make policy, and largely whites and males who make policy.
Rich white guys are holding on to their money.
They hold on to money and make policy. And so when that happens, when you make policy in a vacuum, what you do is you disproportionately impair those who don't have a voice, right? And so I am relatively neutral in my public perspective on the negative impact that policy has had on those that are impoverished and underserved, and I'm tired of being quiet about it at this point, because it's gotten way past a reasonable amount for such a wealthy and modernized country that we continue to make policies that inflict impoverishment and financial enslavement onto those who are already at a negative place of starting, right? And this is a multi-generational impact that you and I have to deal with for the next 40 plus years of our life, and then our children may have to, of course, deal with. And so we're at a point where I think that something, obviously, more people have to start having a conversation about the wealth inequality that we're seeing, and of course, minority inequality from a policy-making standpoint. Right now, 16% of blacks who apply for mortgages are rejected, and that's compared to 7% of whites who are rejected for mortgages. Why is there such a difference in that?
So I used to work for a bank. In that bank, I worked at the hood branch of the bank. For some reason, they put me in the hood branch.
Some reason.
So okay, I was the manager of the hood branch. And I had certain quotas I had to hit, like on getting lending. And there was no way, because they would set the lending guidelines so strenuously that there was just no way that anybody would borrow a loan. And what's crazy is I just read about him in the IBJ last year, they, out of all of their mortgages, they gave out 25 loans to Black people.
Oh my gosh.
The whole year, 25.
Wow.
Old National Bank.
Okay.
It's in the IBJ. I just read about it. So there we're taking something that when I worked for Old National Bank, I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt the structure of it. I was like, there's no way we're getting loans.
Yeah.
And then guess what? Old National Bank's lending money, but they lend it, I believe it's 25.
Yeah.
Now, they're saying, well, we're not discriminating,
Yeah.
but the issue isn't, it's the policy that leads to it's the result.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I do.
So what is it that lending institution is doing? I'm not a bank. I don't know what they're doing. This is the thing. People ask Black people what to do about racism. Look, that's like going up to a deer that just got hit by a car and then just saying, what do I do about? No, I'm the one getting hit by the car. Like, I don't know. You tell me what to do about racism.
But my bumper sticker though.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, what do we do? I don't know. I'm just working. I'm just hustling, trying to raise my family. I don't know.
It's interesting because 25% of Black loan applicants were rejected according to their credit history, compared to 18.5% for whites. So again, So there's
a gap. Why is there 25 to 18? And this is another thing, you guys. This is about modeling. We're focused on today, people taking applications.
Yeah.
You have to look. How many, like for the longest time, buying a house is the first time that anybody in their family has bought a house. In 1965, Black people got full rights. I was born in 79.
Well, can we just stop there for 1 second? Tell me that year again.
65.
Okay, so I'm just checking my watch here. That was less than 60 years ago.
I'm 42.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what's interesting. We've talked about this. We've talked about this off air. The craziest way that I think to look at this is go Google a photo of JFK and then go Google a photo of Martin Luther King. JFK was murdered before the "I Have a Dream" speech. Every MLK photo is black and white.
Yes,
most of your JFK photos are in color, and they vary. And the MLK photos are most likely more recent, and yet they're in black and white.
And this is what's crazy. Martin Luther, that's crazy.
This
another thing.
It makes people believe that it was longer ago.
Than it was. Mm-hmm. Betty White was 99. Martin Luther King, if he was alive, would be 93.
Yeah.
Come on, y'all.
And it seems like it was so much further than that, doesn't it? Because of part of it is how it's projected, how it's portrayed, how it's framed in a way in which, and we could go there's no need to go the conspiracy route of trying to define why. Let's just say that that's how it is.
It is. Like, right? I think we think that this was way further than it is. And in all reality, I'm 42, and this went down like within 20 years of me being alive. Yeah. There was plaques that said white only.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the question then, I guess, is how, I had this debate a little bit last week with some, I think I was telling you before we went on air, is that with some really great, intelligent people who have amazing hearts and yet are also oblivious to the reality and the data, right? It's not intentional. It's not
racial apathy.
That's right. It's just that if you haven't lived it, you don't understand it, right? And
we're all born in the middle of it.
We've strayed so far from exhibiting empathy as a society that empathy is the first thing that has to change, right? Is that people have to understand that in order to be empathetic, you have to put yourself in the position of someone else in order to be willing to feel and think and experience what that other person is thinking, feeling, and experiencing. I equate it when I teach empathy to method acting. Right, as probably the most recent great example of method acting is Daniel Day-Lewis, right, with his Lincoln role, and they say that he went months as Abraham Lincoln, never breaking character in personal life and on set, and that's what empathy looks like. Is you have to be willing to do method acting to understand what someone else is thinking, feeling, and experiencing, and it first has to start there. We make no progress, right? Mm-hmm. And then what I wonder is the credit system itself broken, or is the education around the credit system broken?
Both.
Okay.
So if they're making policies where they're only loaning 25 loans, then there's something that's baked into that system that is not doing. I don't think anybody. What's crazy is I don't think anybody went in and just like, okay, we don't want black people to get loans here.
Yeah.
But the result of that ended up being racist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just want to add, I want to support exactly what you said, which is that in December of 2021. So as of the date of recording this was just about a month and a half ago. Old National Bank gave 37 mortgage loans to black borrowers in an area where 28% of the residents are black. 37 mortgages out of 2,300 almost.
Right.
And 28% of the residents were black. And so, the good and bad of statistics is they can easily be manipulated, taken out of context. We'd have to look at all the number of applicants, what was the rate, and so on. Were they denied based on, specific locations, specific
That's where it happens, though, because people they have plausible. Their credit score, they set their bar to where they can only do da 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 da. That the problem is the problem is that people are being excluded.
Yeah,
and so and if you want to help, like the white folks, what I hear all the time is I see no color. That is wrong. That is wrong.
Tell me more about that.
I want you to see my color.
Okay.
Because then you see me.
Okay.
Because the problem is when you don't see my color, I'm not seen. You remember that time we're talking, we're going back and forth, and you're like, bro, you're good. I know. I'm good. Being black is being invisible. When white people don't see color, y'all don't see me. So I need you to see my color so then you can understand. In 1965, I was not considered a full person.
So this is a little bit off topic, but on the same lane, which is, as a father, I struggle with this, and I say that because Hudson's at an age where he doesn't see color, but he has no idea that there is a difference in people. Right, he's at this place where he just loves people. Period. Right, like he doesn't like. I know for a fact that the first child he gave a hug to was a black child. Right, like he has friends at school who are. In fact, at his birthday party, it was 50% racial mix. He has no idea. Right. We went to a Harlem Globetrotters game last week, and I'm like. There was a portion about the Harlem Globetrotters history and about black history, and I'm like, do I want him to see people as people always and forever, or do I want him to even understand the flawed concept of race? Mm-hmm. At what point in time is that actually become the hindrance for growth? Is where because to me, race is a concept. It is a real concept with consequences, but it is a concept that we have fabricated as a way of defining melanin variations because it perpetuated a system of inequality or a power system. And at a certain point, we're estimated to be about 25 years from homogenized America, where white is actually no longer the majority race. Right. At what point does race become no longer something we should even talk about? I
think we need to talk about it until it's fixed.
Okay.
It's not fixed. So
if it's a majority,
I, as a black person, am often a token. Okay. And let me clarify what a token is. There's two. I'm just saying this, right? I know a token has a negative connotation, but I want to kind of clear what it is, okay? There's two sides of a token. The good side of the token is that I get to be a model for my nieces and my nephews and other people.
Yep.
So they get to see their uncle, their dad, or whatever do things, and then they can kind of mimic that. The other side of the token, the danger side of the token, is that white people see me and they say they made it. look, Mike can do it. They can all do it when there's other Mikes.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying the white people, they need to see my color, because when you see, now you start seeing there's other Mikes out there.
Got it. So I think I want to unpack and make sure I understand what you said, which is basically when white people see a Black successful person like yourself, and they understand you as a person and your character, it humanizes the racial component of it in order to create empathy and understanding and experience.
Or hardens it.
Yeah.
So then they say, look, Mike did it. Why can't they do it? Or so by not seeing my color, what happens is you don't recognize. You think that I'm an anomaly versus the exception rather than the rule. There's other Mikes out there. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, yeah.
So I think that by that talking point and them saying we don't see color, that's a way to make me invisible.
When did, totally now off topic, but out of curiosity, so you have Black children and you have white children, right?
Yes.
And when did which is like a whole totally different topic, but like, when did your Black children know that they were Black?
I informed them.
Yeah, I know. How old do you think
you
they
have
were?
to be clear? You gotta know, because it hits you. Like, because I told you, you think you're a cowboy and you're not.
Yeah, interesting.
So like, you gotta
Do you know if there's like, is there like
every black parent has a conversation with their child.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about how you gotta work twice.
Do you remember
hard.
that conversation?
Absolutely.
How old do you think you were? Okay.
Yeah. So I think that this is it. There's a lot. It's uncomfortable to have that conversation, and I think that the majority of us don't like to be uncomfortable.
You know what it is for me actually is what it is for me is like, right, is like as a father, I want Hudson to be like a trillion times better than me, right? And I want him to have everything. I want him to make humanity better than me, and I see humanity better is when we no longer see the difference in people other than based on their like merits and character. I know that.
So if I look,
that. However, I'm like, where do we start and stop? Right? Do I start at the individual level and then hope that compounds? Right? And then the other thing is that we try to avoid, and I don't know this. You know what? I guess we'll ask a therapist in 30 years or something. But we try to avoid projecting adult concepts onto him. We talk to him like an adult, but we don't project adult pressures and concepts onto him. Like, it's so funny. I get so annoyed and I keep it inside, but it bugs me when someone will be like, "Oh, do you have a girlfriend?" I'm like, he's 4. Like, right.
So
can he just go out?
You're putting that on.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm like, how about you just go out and play and just like be a child until you're no longer at a point where you like need to not have the innocence of being a child. So that's why I was curious, the age part of it.
So I want to go back. So you mentioned like color blindness and not seeing color. So this is a business podcast. So we oftentimes, when we are setting goals, our goal setting is to something that is attainable. So I could say to you, Eric, okay, this year I did almost 12 million.
Yeah.
My goal is to do $200 million.
Okay.
And you would be like, why don't you set something that's more attainable?
Got it. Okay.
We are talking about something that is so far out there that there's no way that we can attain it.
Yeah. So
we need to get to that point. But if we're going to keep falling on our ass if we keep doing it the same way.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I do.
So what I'm saying to white people is y'all need to see color. And what I mean by that is not necessarily like a blanket.
Yeah.
But then see individual people, and then you'll start saying, oh, there's other mics out there, or there's other people.
So this then, like, the way to see that though is first to understand, like, we have to accept reality as it is, right? We have to accept that, yes, in fact, black families are twice as likely as whites to have no wealth. Right? Zero wealth or negative wealth. Right? Like, I have to first acknowledge that as true. Right? And I can't be utopian about my desire to not see any color, because that may lead me to not see reality, which is that blacks are twice as likely as whites to have zero or negative wealth.
So now you deal with it when you give them grace. But if I don't see color, guess what happens? Everybody's treated the same.
Yeah.
And so, and then guess what? This person isn't coming from the same situation. And it all compounds on itself. That's the thing. The house has been built on top of this. So how do you undo that?
You know, we talked about in our episode in May of 2021 about the concept of foreclosures and forbearances, and whether we were going to see a foreclosure crisis. And we, talked about undeniably at that time that the answer was no. And we kind of went down the discussion about those that started with the least, ended up with even less 2 years later through this pandemic. And black women are the ones who have been most negatively impacted as a sub-demographic of the population. And right now, black women, in fact, in the labor force participation rate have exponentially seen unemployment greater than any other sub-demographic of the population. Right. Why do you think that is?
So because there's child care pressures.
Yeah.
So a lot of them tend to be single mothers.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm talking about this thing has all built on itself. So like I read in the 90s. So right now, unemployment doesn't count the prison population.
Jeez. Okay.
So if you were to count the disproportionate amount of black people that are in the prison population, and you counted that in the unemployment, black unemployment would be closer to 40 or 50%.
Holy cow. Okay.
Okay. So like if unemployment of white guys was 40%, do you think they would fix that?
No.
They won't. So guess what? If a disproportionate amount of people are in prison because of failed policies around the drug war, now 20 years later, we have single mothers that can't work because they're at home with their family. You see what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
Everything builds on itself.
So, and then when you look at unemployment rates, the unemployment rates of blacks is right today.
It's already high, but then if you put in their prison,
it's higher today than it was pre-pandemic.
It's higher today than it was. I read somewhere in like 1968.
I would believe that. That
it is crazy.
Right now, black unemployment it's almost it's a little under 10%. It's probably 2 points under that or so roughly.
So unemployment for everybody else is 3.9. But what do we talk about? What is it currently?
You're close to that.
At one point in time, it was 3.9. Right?
Yeah, it's close.
So
to that.
everybody's happy because we're at less than 4%. But guess what? Black folks are at 10%. So, and what's crazy is if you fix the policies and the policies that are impacting that subclass, it's going to impact white people, everybody. It's going to impact everybody. So we focus on that 3.9, but perhaps we could focus on that 10%.